Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Once again we are going to discuss the politics of Pakistan. You know, a lot of things keep happening. Although at this moment there seems to be a bit of lull, but there is this talk of people who sold their votes during the Senate election. That is one aspect. The second aspect is Nawaz Sharif had left the country, had gone to visit his wife in UK, and there was this rumor that as if he is not going to show up again, he is back in Pakistan. And finally, while we are talking about politics, this is not only the year of elections, we are nearing it. Within months, we are supposed to have elections. But so far, the national discourse remains retrospective, not prospective. We haven't seen any political party coming up with the election plan or program. We haven't seen any manifesto. We haven't seen people talking about the coming days, what exactly is going to happen. All we discuss these days is what will happen to Nawaz Sharif and what exactly will be the, who is going to join this party, who is going to come back and join that party. This is the kind of discussion we are having. What exactly is it that that prevents us from focusing on constructive side of the debate? We are going to discuss all these matters and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we have with us Barrister Muhammad Ali Saif Sahab, Senator Muttahida Qawmi Movement. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. I am being joined by Zaeem Qadri, a leader of Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz from Lahore studio. I don't know whether he is with us at this moment or not. Right, and later on we are going to be joined by Noman Wazir Khattak, Senator of PTI, on telephone as well. Barrister, I have to start with you. And your take at this moment of the political direction of the country. At this moment, it seems that everything is suspended in animation. There are allegations upon allegations. But have you seen any election year when the focus is not on elections, but other things?
Well, I believe that keeping in view the historical perspective of Pakistani politics, if you analyze it, it seems quite apparent that Pakistani politics has always been extremely polarized. Accusations, allegations, recriminations, mostly frivolous and baseless. It's part of the game. It is considered to be the kind of accusative rhetoric becomes a fashion in politics. A person or a party which does not engage in this type of verbal attacks or accusations or doesn't have an accusatory polarized politics is considered to be a non-entity. And it becomes a non-entity later. Yeah. So in order to keep yourself alive, these games are being played. But unfortunately, I think what it exhibits or reflects is in my opinion, is the immaturity of democratic values.
Democratic values might be immature or premature, whatever you may call it. But these things are supposed to be appetizers. They are not supposed to be entree.
Yes.
And here in Pakistan, it seems that they have become the main thing. Yes. Everybody is talking about these issues as if they are going to provide bread and butter to the entire country.
These are the issues which are projected by the proponents, by the political parties, to be the major issues. They become their policy lines, they become their policy objectives. And that is why I said that it reflects a kind of a premature state of democracy in Pakistan, because politics in mature democracies revolves around policy issues, national objectives, international agendas. We don't have that. Nobody is interested, nobody is bothered, and even most of our leaders do not even have a clue as to what those issues should be that must guide the nation and where they must take the nation. So in my opinion, one, this is an inherent flaw in our system. Number two, the level of maturity, as I said, or standard. And then it's the internal dynamics that rule the parties as well.
Right.
That must also be kept in mind, because most of our political parties are family-oriented parties.
Yeah.
And when they are family-oriented, therefore family objectives and disputes with other families, they become your policy.
Right, but the problem is you have family-oriented parties and you have individual-oriented parties. And the problem is we don't move beyond that. At this moment, I'm told I'm joined by Zaeem Qadri from Lahore. Zaeem Qadri sahab, thank you very much for joining us from Lahore, sir. Thank you very much for your time. Sir, we were talking about politics and especially the, situation in which we are preparing for the next elections. But it seems that our focus is retrospective. We keep on discussing past. At this moment, everybody is talking about Nawaz Sharif's electoral, with due respect, his trial, not electoral politics. What exactly is it that is stopping us from looking forward, sir?
Thank you so very much, Patafi Saab, for inviting me. My regards to my brother. My concern would be that certainly it's very important that everybody should think about the new general elections now in a very categorical perspective. That if at all we think and we have to make sure that we are going to have a fair and free elections on time, which would eventually not only streamline the future of Pakistan, but the way we're going to move forward. Certainly, Mohammad Nawaz Sharif's trial is very important because he is the most important person in politics till date. He is the biggest leader of masses. He's been elected thrice Prime Minister of Pakistan, which is a great honor, and by vote. Now, when coming on to a particular frame of mind where you start cutting to size political parties through different processes, that has been a practice in this country for the last 70 years. I think that had never helped the political system to go on. It had for sure put a lot of, I would say, hindrances in increasing the basic political infrastructure in Pakistan. And what my brother was just saying, that you have inherited parties, but eventually, when you go as an inherited party, you go to the masses. Anybody who inherits a party has to face the masses. And if he's not elected by the masses, he would not be there at the helm of the affairs to do something. My concern would be that to keep the process going on, we should keep in mind the basic political infrastructure and its restoration.
And one should be talking about those matters at this moment, Zaeem Qadri Sahab. One should be talking about the jobs that you can create in coming years if you are returned to public office. We should be talking about infrastructure, your plans for next 5 years. But nobody is doing that. Where is your party's manifesto? Elections are only months away, sir.
Now, Patafi Saab, I would call it my notion. My phrase for the general election would be, vote ko izzat do. Now, if till date, after 70 years, I am striving for the sanctity of the vote, how would I be held accountable for what I have done in the last 5 years? We go back every 5 years to the basic political infrastructure, which has been destroyed every time by again and again. I would not go in for those 30, 40 years when the martial law was there and the constitution was in abeyance. But still, we have not moved forward. After 70 years of age, Pakistan is striving for vote ko izzat do.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that we should be respecting the sanctity of vote. But sir, with due respect, at this moment, it is your party that is ruling the country. Who's disrespecting your vote, sir? The Prime Minister is yours. The government in Punjab is yours. Why would you say that your vote is not being respected by the institutions or anybody in the country?
I couldn't complete myself, otherwise I would have made it more easier. No, my concern is till date that this should not be my notion going, or anybody's notion going into the elections. It should have been just a fine line of deliverance, because all three big political parties are in charge of different 3 provinces. we would have now been comparing for people like you, very, very sharp minds and, who apply themselves, and my bhai sitting there, would have been talking about our deliverance. What had these political parties done in their provinces to give sanctity of the vote? The Chief Justice said the other day that it's the deliverance which matters. Yes, deliverance is the core issue. Why aren't we discussing that? Because we have been playing around with each other, all of us, may it be myself as well, over political issues from last 70
And I'm
years.
going to talk about that as well. Let me come back to the studio here and let me go to Barrister Saab once again. What you're saying is, there is dynastic politics, and because of that and because of charisma of certain leaders, party doesn't move on, and that's why the focus is on other things. Zaeem Qadri Saab is saying that at this moment, when you look at the priorities, nobody is, attaching that much value to the vote. Where exactly does the people's agenda lie?
Well, you see, in a democratic system, people are form the basis of democracy. Without people, there is no concept of democracy. Democracy doesn't stand anywhere if people are ignored. However, the problem is that here we are discussing in Pakistan, or what we are confronting right now in our politics. The whole political discourse revolves around two major issues. One is the systemic problems which are reflected in your governance system, the systemic problems within the system. Number two, you have institutional issues. Those needs to be rectified. Like what I mean by institutional issues is, for example, I'll just give you one example, political parties. Political parties themselves need to become more democratic.
Right.
They must give actual reflection and space to the aspirations of their workers.
Okay.
In order to be able to deliver.
Right.
Because
who's going to fix that problem?
we ourselves, the political parties themselves.
How?
Because
you
they
haven't
are
done
the
it
pillars.
in 70 years.
We haven't. That is the problem. Because number one, our socio-cultural system does not allow you to do that to the level where it is required. Like for example, India has been far ahead than us and than Pakistan in certain ways in actually demolishing their traditional social cultural system in order to pave way for democratic reforms through their election commissions and through regular local bodies elections.
Right now it seems that they are demolishing institutions as well.
It happens up and, it goes up and down in most systems. Look at America, United States of America, having Trump. That shows, that how effectively and efficiently a democratic system works all the time. But still, in Pakistan, we haven't even taken the initial steps that are required. Number two, political parties basically are the vehicles which, in fact, articulates the demands of the public, of their voters,
right.
and then make it happen through the governance system. Now, institutional flaws there in the political parties, and I'm talking about across the board all political parties.
Right.
Then you come to the governance system, there are flaws. Now, how do I fix them? I think 5 years period is not enough to be taken as a panacea for curing these problems, because these problems have been inherited over the last several decades.
8 years, yes. 11 years, yes. 70 years.
I don't think you can, it would be practical or a pragmatic approach to give a certain number of years for that, because there is no specific formula. However, as I said, systemic reforms require drastic measures, number one, and number two, harmony between institutions.
Right.
What are we witnessing right now in Pakistan is the disharmony between institutions. There is a conflict between institutions, which is actually taking its toll, not on just the democratic system, but also on the rights of the people. And that is what I think Zaeem Qadri, what he is saying is exactly this. Because in this conflict, you waste a lot of time and resources and you don't do the...
As we move forward, I'm going to talk about the prospects of your party's alliance. Electoral alliance with Zaeem Qadri Saab's party as well. But I'm told that I'm joined by Noman Wazir Khattak Saab, Senator PTI. He's on telephone. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Khattak Saab, let us talk about electoral preparations at this moment. We were anticipating that by this time we would have seen, party programs for the next elections, the manifestos. your party has been talking about bringing about a change. And in that, we were expecting that at least, although you also talked about shadow governments, which never materialized, but now manifesto. Why haven't we seen it so far, sir?
Well, all parties have a manifesto. They have made their manifestos a few years back. Similarly, PTA also made their manifesto a few years back. And yes, we have not updated it like any other party, but our approach is visible in Parliament, whether it's National Assembly or Senate, on issues whether it is privatization, on economy, on governance, good governance, on law and police and order, all these things. So we do have, not that we have modified our manifesto, but our vision is very clear. People know what we think about issues about corruption, the things that we ought to talk about, good governance, how to make things better. But it's very much visible in KPK, the way things are being done. I mean, you can see over here the way education sector that in the KPK we have a 31% growth in the education sector in the last financial year, in health we have about 20%. Police reforms, everyone talks about
Right.
it, 51% is the reduction in
Then I am to assume that what you are promising for the next election is that you are going to replicate the KPK model all over the country. Is it right, sir?
Yes, sir, that's what it is. Whether it
We are
is
dead.
Revenue Department or the Dispute Resolution Committee, which the federal government talks about, known as, they call it Alternate Dispute, ADR. We over here call it Dispute Resolution Committee, TRC, or the right of information that we have, or the Revenue Department that we have changed, the Patwari system that we have changed, the software that we put into it. All of this thing, the legislation that we call it, it's a wholesome thing that we are doing. The whole
Right.
impact that we see, it's probably not visible in 5 years. Down the line, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, this impact would be, the outcome would be visible. So this is the
Khattak
input
sahab,
of this
I
kind
get
of
what
system.
you're saying, sir. With due respect, that might be true, sir. But at this moment, usually people get some measure of scrutiny. They get some kind of control by seeing a document produced by parties. You were saying that other parties have not produced it either. But your party actually has been promising change. So you are supposed to be different. Isn't it true, sir?
Yes, that's right. We should be doing it. We are, compared to other parties, we are better organized. Manifesto, we have not updated it, but whatever the original manifesto was, like what we talked about privatization, economy, employment generation, all these things are very well covered into it, but it should be a living document. Manifesto should be updated. I agree with you. The change in the world scenario, things around, it should be there, and we should be doing it. But our living example is whatever is being done in KPK. That's what it is. That's how the whole Pakistan would be replicated like.
Right. But by that that interpretation, PML-N can say whatever, look at whatever is happening in Punjab, and then that is going to be the indicator. With due respect, we do need a document. Let me go to Zaeem Qadri sahab. Zaeem Qadri sahab, who is heading your manifesto committee, sir?
Patafi Saab, I just couldn't hear what Khattak Saab was saying. I couldn't hear a word. But as far as my
Right.
party is concerned,
We will
Mr.
try to
Hassan
fix
Iqbal-
that problem, sir. But do answer my question.
Mr. Hassan Iqbal, there are a few other people. It's been made about 3 to 4 months back, and we are working on that because we're trying to dovetail our development projects with the downstream development project we would be going into. And certainly that would be a very straightforward manifesto. But my concern yet again stays.
I hope it is not going
that
to be
until-
one-liner. As you said
No, no,
earlier,
it's-
vote ko
it's
izzat
gon-
do.
It's going to be a proper document that would be dovetailed to the projects and the conceptions which were put forward to the people of Pakistan before going into 2013 elections. You know, it had mass transit systems in it. It had serious advantages for agriculture. It had serious advantages for the industry and infrastructure development. Because we are convinced that when you go in for infrastructure development, that directly contributes into your growth rate. And now, these days, the targeted subsidy models like mass transit systems would certainly be a very important aspect to bring change.
Right.
Bring change. Because these
I,
things have
I
never been happened
understand the
before.
promises that you're
And
going
we
to
are the
make,
only
sir.
one who've done that.
But with the document, usually one gets the exact measures how to actually build that kind of system. But let us talk about another very important thing, sir, and that is about the Senate elections.
I just want to
It
say a
was-
few words, Patafi Sahab.
Sir, with due respect, let me move on to something that is as important, and it is present.
Okay, sir.
It was your Prime Minister, sir, our Prime Minister, the elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, who first started complaining about the way Senate elections were held. And after that, we saw that PTI has come forward with a list of 20 names, naming and shaming them, demanding an explanation from them. And we still are seeing what exactly is your party going to do about this matter, because it was a demand that first came from your parties.
Ji, bilkul, I agree with you, Patafi Sahab, and everybody knows that the sale and purchase of horses was not curtailed or controlled to few people, but in words of Sirajul Haq, the stables were sold.
Okay.
Look, my concern would be that I was the first one as a political worker who made a plaint to the President of Pakistan that when these elections were held, on basis of priority, the President should look into this matter and actually scratch these elections, because the day of when these elections were held, democracy was practically murdered in provincial assemblies.
Hang on,
The way
Qadri sahab,
people were
explain
bought and
one thing.
sold
You are
was
saying that
derogatory
these
to the
elections should
system
be
itself.
scrapped, right?
Yes, it should be.
Do we have provision for that in the constitution, sir?
I'm not sure. Bhai Muhammad Ali Saif is an expert. I know law, but I think the president must be having some powers to go and review the entire system. And the way, buying and selling was made openly and blatantly. And now political parties like Imran Khan Saab is telling people that you've been selling your votes, whereas they are saying that you've been selling tickets for 50 crores each. So if you sell 4 tickets for 50 crores, you get about
Right.
2 billion rupees, Patafi Saab. So your election
Qadri sir,
campaign
we are
would be
going to
very
talk
smooth.
about PTI because we have representation from PTI, but do tell us what exactly are you going to do with your people who might have sold the votes, because in Punjab we have seen there was a huge surprise
I'll tell you.
when
I'll
your
tell you.
former governor actually won.
We have categorically investigated it. We knew people, some of the people who voted were the people who just left with those Vaderas and Jagirdars who were looking up to a new province for themselves and of their own kind, which they don't want, because we were the one who know and who say categorically that we should have at least 2 more provinces in Punjab.
Right, sir.
Why they want
you
it?
have
Because they want to
already
create
said
their hegemony
categorical 3
on the
times, sir.
province.
So when are you going to come up with the categoric names of the candidate people who might have sold their votes?
The day we go out of the government, we will be coming up with those names, and we will not keep those people in the party anymore, inshallah. You would see. But my concern is that evident that the person who's got votes knows who he has paid for those votes.
Okay.
The person who has taken that money is not saying or not agreeing to the fact that he's taken money. He's lying. But the person who's taken those votes by money knows, and it's evident that his political party vote were 20 or 30, and he's getting about 44 votes.
Right.
So
And we are
mockery of
going to
the
talk
whole
about that,
situation is
Zaeem
that
Qadri
we
sir.
are
Let
not
me come
asking
back
those
to
people
Barrister sir.
who
Barrister
have,
sir,
actually bought
one
votes.
question was raised regarding, scrapping of an election, indirect election, Senate election. Is that even possible, sir?
Well, scrapping of elections, there is no provision as such in express provision in the law for that. But in case there are allegations of corruption or of vote rigging or some other illegal practices, then you have two institutions that are responsible. One is the Election Commission of Pakistan. You have to file a reference there, you have to petition them, and then they will
eventually Supreme
decide.
Court.
But they need evidence as well.
And then they will de-seat the incumbent, but they won't undo the election, right?
The elections have, that process is now
the first
fired short,
election
yeah.
was to Senate, the second was to the post of chairman and deputy chairman of the Senate.
Yes.
They stay put.
Yes, they stay put because once it is done, it is done. It's a process. You can't rewind the process. But you can de-seat any candidate, an incumbent member of either the Senate or the National Assembly through Election Commission, but then there is a recourse option to the Supreme Court.
Right.
So they would go there and the final decision will lie with the Supreme Court.
I have a question from Bhai Muhammad Ali.
Ji. Kya
My
Zaeem
question, Muhammad Ali Bhai, is
yeah.
that if at all the Election Commission goes and investigates that there have been a malafide and people have been selling votes and buying votes and they de-seat those senators and the strength of the Senate go down and there's yet again another election for those particular seats in the Senate, wouldn't it be having a retrospective effect on the election of the chairman of the Senate?
Well, Qadri Sahab, you know, this would be a unique situation. It hasn't happened in the past. But in order to, if a large number of senators are de-seated, that might create a situation where this question can be raised. But insofar as vacancy in the Senate is concerned, it would not result in, it would not have any retrospective implications for the election of the. But however,
if the result changes.
Hang on,
However,
hang on. Qadri, I have another question for you, but let me finish with...
However, Qadri Sahab, answering to, reverting back to your question, petitions have been filed in the Election Commission. I'm also pursuing some of those petitions.
Okay, that might be so.
Yeah.
But why is it that a parliament that has been talking about electoral reforms for years now, and there was a sit-in for 4 months, after that we did a lot of things. We haven't even thought about these issues. There is no provision in the constitution, there is no provision in the law, and there is no recourse.
So far, the discussion on reforms is going on.
Okay.
We have
already passed a law.
We have had certain sessions in the Senate of Pakistan. The Committee of the Whole had discussed reforms in the Senate, electoral process for Senate and other functioning and powers of the Senate. However, yes, there is a room for reforms, and every other day we are facing new realities and new problems. And I think that, as they say, Constitution is a living document. We do need to reconsider these issues. And yes, there is a room for reform, and that those reforms must be undertaken.
And pray, what happens to the people who might have done exactly the same in your party, sir?
Yes, there are. I am actually pursuing. I have filed petitions in the.
You have named them as well?
Yes, we have given the names and the details, but it has to be kind of hotly contested by before the Election Commission. Of course, their lawyers will appear and they will deny these allegations. But let's see.
And with due respect, there were people who were elected on your party ticket, and
yes.
now they are sitting in PSP.
Yes. That is the flaw in our legal system as well and in our constitutional system, because once you are elected on the basis of a party, you should not be allowed to then remain in the parliament and occupy that seat, because you are in a way defying the confidence of the people. But look at the Tehreek-e-Insaf case when PTI removed Aisha Gulalai, MNA. The Election Commission did not agree with the party decision and they allowed her to stay. So there is this problem. Yeah.
If so many parties are affected by something, they should be sitting together and coming up with a boisterous plan to overcome those issues. That doesn't seem to be happening. Khattak Sahab, let me come back to you, sir. We are talking about the people who might have sold their votes in the Senate elections. Sir, after naming those people, what exactly is the next step for your party?
Well, let me say, I mean, in the last 70 years, we had 30 years of martial law and 40 years of democracy. And in this 40 years, starting from 1985, when Jinujo Saab was the Prime Minister, I mean, we had this issue of Changa Manga, then we had the Murray, this thing, and then we had the Marriott, Islamabad issue that came up, and people being bought and sold over there. This election of the Senate has always been an issue. Then in 2015, we saw, when I was elected as senator, we saw Senator Gulzar and Senator Waqar coming in with bags full of money and trying to purchase this thing. So there was a parliament committee on election reforms. PTI had a very clear stand that this sort of a system for election of senators has to be changed, where such buying of votes doesn't take place. Fine, whatever happened, we had evidence with the Chief Justice Khattak Saab did an inquiry with one, two other parliamentarians within. And there was some evidence that came up in the form of some money transaction being taken place through hundi, and there were some telephone calls which were recorded, and there was some other evidence. So based on this evidence, we were the first party ever in the history of Pakistan. And ANP did that with 2 MPs in the past. But this was the first time that 20 MPs were given a show cause notice to explain. Right. It's not a final decision that they blamed. It's a show cause notice. They have to come and instead of swearing on Quran that they've not been doing it, they don't have to do that. They have to come over here. We put this evidence in front of them. Maybe it is wrong. Maybe it's fabricated evidence by someone to just put a blame on them. They have to come to this committee, explain their position, and if there's nothing wrong, they continue with everything. If there's something wrong, the case will be referred to NAB or someone to take the required action against them.
Senator Khattak Saab, after this explanation process, what exactly happens? If you find somebody guilty, are you going to consult NAB or Election Commission or the Supreme Court, sir?
No, what we at the moment we think that if we find anyone who is indulged in this thing and doesn't have a very good explanation for it, we would refer the case to that and they would do a detailed inquiry, because it's like some parties saying that the Supreme Court should take a suo motu action against this. Fine, if Supreme Court wants to take a suo motu action, fine. But it's a trial court issue where evidence have to be put front. So I don't know, Barrister Saif would probably explain better. Is it the Supreme Court? It is a trial court which is going to put them, take this whole process forward. But one thing for sure, this is something very good for democracy, that such things all parties should, whether it is Chaudhry Sarwar case in Punjab or anyone's case, if they think money has been taken, money has been a criteria for giving this vote, this should take the proper course of action, and law should take action against it. On the other hand,
that
any
is
senator
music
has a right to vote
ears
for
of
anyone.
everybody that is talking at this moment, sir. But let me ask you another thing. You have revealed the people who might be sold, but you haven't actually named the people who might be buying the votes at this moment. Is it not important to actually uncover their names as well, sir?
Well, first of all, you're right. I mean, if someone is buying votes, giving money, he's also indulging in something wrong. He should not be doing it. But let me ask you a question. Is it, once the Patwari takes the money, is it against the Patwari the law takes action? Yes, or is it against the individual? Or if someone crosses a red light and the police guy is taking bribe for that money, so you get hold of the bribe of the police guy. You get hold of the Patwari. You don't, internationally this is what it is. That person taking the money is to be caught first. But I don't disagree with you. People who have been paying their money, they also should be taken to task, and it should be stopped for the interest of the nation, in the interest of democracy. If you want to have proper people to be representing your party in the Senate, where a very highly intellectual discussion takes place, and whether it's result-oriented or not, that's a separate issue. But people in the Senate are one who, compared to the National Assembly, where intellectual discussion takes place, and most of the time things do conclude, but then the government has to implement it. Unfortunately, the present government is failing to implement those things. Unfortunately, the ministers are failing to come to the Senate. Many questions and others that are asked or motions that are moved, the ministers fail to answer appropriately.
Right. That is an issue that is very important, and we are going to have another show on that. At this moment, let us talk about this next step that we are talking about. You said that usually the person who accepts bribes is caught. But with due respect, sir, we claim to be an Asian or Eastern society. We believe in a wholesome, course of action or justice.
Islam is very
and
categorical
there it
about
is said, Al-Rashi wal-Murtashi kalahuma finnar.
Yeah.
Right? So one has to actually look at the other people. When are you going to disclose the buyer's name, sir?
Well, I think one should look into the buyers who will be paying all this money, and if there is like in case of like who do you think? I mean, okay, let's be very frank about it. Why you should be, as they say in Pashto, shaf shaf. Why should I do that? Be very clear. Who got? I mean, People's Party didn't have the strength over here. They got votes. How did it happen?
Right.
I mean, how did two senators from
just add a
People's Party get
sentence.
elected?
Right,
So
sir.
I mean, it's very clear who bought, who paid. It's very clear who paid. If
Right,
People's
but
Party or
this
some
is
party
the
didn't have seats
deductive
over here.
logic, sir. Let us talk about evidence and let us talk about the names, as you have already done. And it is remarkable, I must appreciate that your party has come forward with the names of people who might have sold their votes. It is a great thing, but then you have to complete the argument. You have to show the other hand as well. Zaeem Qadri sahab, do you want to say something, sir?
Just a sentence, something which has happened for the first time in the elections of Senate is so derogatory to the democratic process that you can't even imagine, Batavi Saab. This time, people who had voted for PTI members who had voted for PTI senators have taken money from them, and one of them came on television and said that I was paid by my senator to give for a particular amount, and now he's asking me back that I should return that amount to him because he thinks that I didn't vote for him.
Can you name that
So
senator?
this has
Hang
never
on,
happened
Qadri
before.
sahab, can you name the
so
persons?
PTI paid to their own MPs for their own senators. So I think after this, I think this election does not stand a chance and it should be scratched and we should go again for the Senate elections.
You realize that if for some reason the Senate elections, even if it is possible, are scrapped, that will delay the national elections as well?
No, it has not. It has no constitutional
No,
impact. They
without
have
a
their own
complete
schedule.
house, you cannot actually move on to the next stage, can you?
If you do it today, give a new schedule of 20 days, assemblies would be in fashion and vogue till 31st of May. You can have new elections, no big deal.
Right, but
And we can just do it.
But regarding the names that your party has to put forward, the people who might have actually sold their votes from your party, your leadership used to be quick on these issues. We remember they used to remove people immediately, but this time I don't see that happening. What is stopping you, sir?
What we have calculated is the people who voted against us are most of the people who are not going to get tickets. We know that because the seats have been reduced. You know that 9 seats from the National Assembly and again about 18 have less in the Provincial Assembly. So those 18 people who knew that their tickets would be going to somebody else would certainly be playing around. There were some people who were planning to go to some other party because they think that there might be a ungli ka ishara coming from somewhere and they would go and contest their elections from there. So
Qadri sir,
our percentage is
usually
considerably very low.
There's a lot of suggestions
Than
in what you
compared
say,
to other
sir.
political parties.
Why don't you give a clear answer? Name names. If you think there are people who are actually affecting or influencing election, name them.
We will.
Your
We
party
will.
keeps on talking
And we
about a
are
conspiracy, we don't see it.
I think I've talked a lot about this and in the party, in the Central Working Committee, and inshallah we'll give you the result very soon. But it will be comprehensive, both ways. Like we think that PTI should have talked to Sarwar Saab as well, that how he managed to get 14 more votes than his own strength. Whereas People's Party and Q League secured their own strength of 7 votes each.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. And that actually takes me to the next step. Barrister Saab, do you want to suggest something that can be done within parties to ensure that this kind of strange things don't happen?
I believe that, as I had earlier pointed out, there are institutional flaws within the parties, and it's difficult for the parties generally to control their members the way they behave. Although the Constitution provides for 3 scenarios where a party head can take action against its member if he doesn't follow the party advice or order. But other than that, they are free to do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
And since the election is through a secret ballot, therefore it gives them even more cover to sell their vote and to give it to somebody which is not in accordance with their party line. So as I said, there is no yes or no answer to your question. We need to have to look into it, consider, and actually delve into the issue of systemic reforms in the election system.
I totally
of
get
the Senate,
this bit, but with due respect, when a learned person like you says this has to be done, it worries me because past 15, 20 years we have been talking about what has to be done, and yet we haven't actually come close to fixing the problems.
We haven't, because of the fact that, you see, when you are trying to manage things through parliament, then you must keep in mind that the system, the structure of parliament is consensus based, or at least majority based, that majority should support a certain move. Now, in order to seek that majority, you need approval of a maximum number of your members. The House is divided, National Assembly is divided, there are many parties, so even the ruling party at times find it difficult to pass through a legislative process. Similarly, in the Senate, the situation is totally opposite. In the Senate, we have the opposition in majority rather than the treasury benches. So these, it's a complicated process. Democracy is a complicated
It is
system.
messy,
Yeah.
it is supposed to be
Yeah.
messy, but somebody has to fix the basic
Agreed,
problem.
agreed.
And
There is-
it seems that we haven't started yet. Sir, I'm told that we have to conclude the program. Khattak Saab, your conclusion, sir. What can we do to fix these problems apart from deciding whether the Senate election should be direct or indirect?
Look, let me just clarify about Chaudhry Sarwar's issue. I mean, we had people from PML from the southern Punjab, NPS, and after the issue of khattak who walked out of PML, who were angry with PML. They all in mass voted for Chaudhry Sarwar. Now the issue only comes up whether they took money or not. If they didn't take money, they are at free will to vote for anyone.
Khattak sir,
There is no
it
legal
seems-
binding on it that they can vote for this or they have to follow the party principle. You cannot be dictated.
With due respect, Khattak Saab, it seems that you have asked Chaudhry Sarwar. Has your party formally asked Chaudhry Sarwar how did he get elected?
No, I don't know about that. If someone asked, but this is my views. I have not asked Chaudhry Sarwar himself, but this is my views that people who were against, who were the were not in line with the party because of Southern Punjab issue and because of Khattak issue, they all voted for, and Chaudhry Sarwar's his own personality. People, look, you can't vote for anyone. You don't have to follow the party direction. There is no legal binding. But the only issue comes that if you took money and then voted, that is where the Master 62, 63 comes into play.
And there is an assurance from somebody that he didn't actually buy the votes. He got elected on merit, sir.
So then let PML-N give show cause notice to their own MPs, like we did. Let them inquire into it. They should inquire, and this is what is the very democratic and a judicial way of doing it. I mean, you do an inquiry and you think if they took money, you take action. If they didn't take money, if it's their free will, they voted for it. The law permits them to vote for anyone they feel like. No one can stop them, or no, there's no
I couldn't hear the reason Khattak Saab was getting.
Right. Qadri
why
sir,
he
I'm
got
coming
elected.
to you, but before that, let me thank Senator Khattak. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. We have to leave it at that. Zaeem Qadri sir, kindly conclude, sir, what you want
One,
to say.
I would categorically say that there are a lot of allegations on Khattak Saab as well, because they've never been in party before. They just walked in, a billionaire walking in with a lot of briefcases and winning his elections. Two, to conclude the whole story, I would say that continuation of the democratic process is the only answer to make it more legitimate and keep it happening. If you disrupt the democratic process every 10 years and see that
Who's disrupting
plant
it
is
at this
growing
moment?
or not, you would certainly succumb to injuries.
Qadri sir, who is disrupting it at this moment?
Pardon?
Who is disrupting the system at this moment? Your party was elected, it has the Prime Minister ruling the country, and it is going to complete its term in office.
Yeah. It has been disrupted many a times in this country. That is why
not now,
we
sir.
are still striving for sanctity of vote.
Right.
Patafi Sahib, you know everything. So let the system go on.
I mean,
Until unless the continuity is there, the system would not deliver.
right. On that note, Qadri Sahab, I have to thank you as well. Thank you very much for your
So grateful,
participation
sir.
in the program. Let me come back to the studio. Barrister Sahab, do conclude. Tell us, what do you think can improve the situation at this moment?
Well, to talk.
You talk about broader things,
Yeah.
like reform system.
Yes, I understand. but-
Specify a couple.
Yeah. Well, the reforms is that system, the electoral system for the Senate should be changed.
Direct elections?
That is one option, but then there are certain flaws and deficiencies even in that system.
In Punjab, it becomes physically impossible.
Also in other provinces, yeah,
In
because-
Sindh, in Balochistan as well, because one has a lot of territory, the
Yes.
other one has a lot of votes.
Yes, and then you would only be able to only very rich people with a lot of financial, strength would be able to contest the elections. So therefore, my take on this is, and I've said it several times, even in the Senate in various debates, that we need to change the overall electoral system. We need to make it a combination of first the past poll system and also proportional representation system. And some representation, some seats should be given to the parties and some should be individuals.
Right.
So that the parties getting votes in general elections should not, that vote should not get wasted. It should transform into or materialize into seats in the upper house.
Right.
Like there is this system in Argentina, there are certain other countries where such system has been adopted. So I believe if those systemic reforms are carried out, maybe we will see some improvement. And
Right.
the last thing, character, moral character of our people, of our voters,
Yeah.
be that a member of a National Assembly, Provincial Assembly, Senate, or an ordinary citizen.
Right.
That needs to be.
Character is quite an abstract term. This is the problem. But one quick question before I conclude the program, and that is regarding the territorial house, that is Senate. Do you think that having territorial houses in the provinces might actually add to the solution?
I believe that
A bicameral system at the province level?
Yes. I mean, to some extent, yes. But I also would add on to it I would add another angle to it. And I personally think that there is a demand for more provinces. Let the provinces be divided into smaller provinces. That would improve not just the governance system, but also the representation
That
system.
seems quite
Yes,
difficult,
but-
I think. We have been
Yeah.
hearing this since
Yeah.
we were children. We haven't seen anything done. But, sir, on that, I have to conclude the program. Barrister Sahab, thank you very much for your time. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. This discussion has to go on. But one thing is important. Something is changing in this country. At least we are talking about people who might have sold their votes. We are talking about manifestos. We are talking about some measure of accountability. If these discussions continue, if our focus is on these things, maybe one day we are going to have a stable, mature, and irreversible democracy in this country. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.